All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone. My name is Masood Rahman and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, can someone type in yes into the question box if you can hear me clearly? I want to make sure that everyone can hear me speaking. Okay, thank you. Someone responded. Right, thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development. We're very excited to host today's technical webinar, Cisco Networking, Building Roads. Please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored toward your specific requirements. If you're interested in further discussion, you can make an appointment with one of our learning consultants through our website at www.netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you will get a free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. So let's get to the agenda for our webinar today. We'll first briefly talk about Netcom Learning. Then we'll talk about the GoToWebinar logistics. Then our presenter, Gilbert Mash, will present today's topic about Cisco networking. Then we'll talk about related courses and the promotions that we have available for you. And the last thing is that we will be running a poll and going through question and answers that you may have after the webinar. We're talking about Netcom. Netcom Learning is an award-winning global leader in managed learning services, technical and talent development. We have trained over 90,000 professionals over the years. We have about 10,000 corporate clients that we have served. Microsoft's World Partner of the Year. 96% of our customers recommended us to others. Our instructor evaluation is 8.6 out of a 9. Top 20 IT training companies, we are named by the trainingindustry.com. 1,500 plus IT and business courses that are available through us, and trained over 80% of the Fortune 100 companies. And we do have 20 plus leading vendor recognitions. Now let's talk about the webinar logistics. You can select the viewing to your liking. On the top left corner, there is a Zoom button. You can click there and you can select the zooming to your requirement or whatever your screen is permitting. Then the next thing is that, sorry, my voice is a little bit choppy today. Everyone has been muted for this presentation. Only person that is allowed to speak during this presentation is our presenter. So feel free to submit any question you have for the presenter at the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. So the question pane is right here. So some of you have answered to my question in the beginnings, which is right here. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and add them here, and we will address them at the end. A PDF copy of today's slides are also available at the handout section. So there is a handout section right underneath here, and you can download a PDF copy of it. Now, let's talk about Gilbert Mash. Gilbert is an IT professional with over 10 years of experience in corporate training and learning. Related to Cisco, he has certification in CCNA, routing and switch, CCNA security, CCNA voice, and CCDA, and other certifications such as CSUM, CISA, and CISSP. Now I will transfer this over to Gilbert, and after Gilbert's presentation, we'll get back and we'll have some discussions about the courses and the questions that you have. So Gilbert, whenever you're ready, you can take on from here.
Right, I'm ready. Thank you so much, Masood, for the introduction, and welcome to everyone. It's my pleasure to be hosting you for the Cisco Networking Introduction course on choosing whether you will be pursuing networking and specifically under the vendor from Cisco. Right, so what we do in networking is building rods. Yes, you heard me right, building rods. Now some of you are already thinking, did I sign up for building rods? You actually did. Right, so what we are going to talk about is, in Cisco networking, our objective as systems administrators, as engineers, as consultants, is to make sure that we build a network. And a network is equivalent to what we call rods today. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive in, talk about the concepts, and then we do a presentation of the actual configuration of a Cisco device. So what's our agenda today? We're going to explain what a network is. We are going to talk about network from the Cisco perspective, the types of networks, how you configure an interface to give it an IP address, password configuration, talk about the different classes of Cisco network devices. We're going to talk about routing. What is routing? Why do we actually call it a router? Right, we're going to dive into that. And then lastly, after we're done with the theory, we're going to go into the exciting part, the actual live demonstration of how we configure Cisco devices. So let's dive in. Like has been introduced, we at Netcom Learning pride ourselves in 3 objectives on any course we teach. In this context, Cisco. Right, number 1, we transfer knowledge to you. That's very important and very personal to me, that you get the knowledge, the deep understanding of the concept. The second thing is we make sure that you get hands-on implementation experience from a lab perspective, so that when you leave, once we've trained you, you have a degree of comfort on managing Cisco devices, whether they be switches, routers, firewalls, etc. And then the last thing, obviously, that we do is to help you pass the exam so that you get the credential. So this is a multi-pronged approach to make sure that you are successful in understanding, in gaining the hands-on, and passing your exam. Right, so this session is going to be approximately 45 minutes. I encourage your participation. Put in questions, write them down. When we get to the Q&A session, we're going to be reflecting back on those questions. So let's dive in. Right, so what is a network? What is a network? A network is bringing what we call nodes together and interconnecting them. Like you can see on the screen above, with a we have a picture that resembles different types of nodes or devices that you can connect into a network. Right. If you look, one of the devices is what is taking the world by storm as we speak, connecting your cars, your homes, your phones, your computers, your tablets, your phablets, your laptop, connecting them so that we communicate through whichever device you are using, wherever you are in the part of this world. So that is a network. A network is basically connecting devices together. These devices can be different types of devices: printers, phones, even your camera, right? Your kitchen appliances, etc., etc. So that is a network. It's connecting devices together. But question, what are the different types of networks? Now this is very important. It's going to get a bit technical, but it's important that you understand the 4 classes of networks. Right. So the first one is what we call a PAN. As you can see from the screen there, a PAN is a personal area network. Now, I know this will sound very new to many people, but as a practitioner and as an academician, my experience tells me and shows me that this is the one that is least spoken about. But this is the point of departure, right? A personal area network is a network which is around yourself, which is around your body, which is around your person, right? A personal area network could simply be your phone and your Bluetooth headset. In many literature, that will be the definition and classic example that you hear of a personal area network, right? Your TV, your television, and your remote control, that's a personal area network. Any network that's within your person is a personal area network. Any network that is around yourself, your body, close to you, around you, with you, that's a personal area network. So a good and classic example that you always hear that we use day to day is your phone connected via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to your earpiece. That's a personal area network. Right, so that's, by the way, the smallest part or type of a network. Now let's augment that and go into what we call a LAN. LAN stands for a local area network. Now this is the most common type of network that you hear, that you see, that you probably experience. Right. A local area network is a network within one building. Right. Technically, it can go beyond one building, but the classic definition of a local area network is a network that's within one building. So for example, when you're at home, so some of you are actually dialed in the comfort of your home. That's a local area network. You've got your Wi-Fi router, which provides internet to the devices that's around and within your house. That's a local area network. Some of you are actually in your lunch break at work, but you are connected through the network of your corporate network. That's a local area network as well. A local area network is within a room, a building, right? So that's a local area network. This is the most experienced, most used, most exposed network that you and I will work with. It's a local area network of a building, of a corporate office, or a home, right? Now we go further and talk about a man. Now, man does not mean a human being, a male, no. Some of you are wondering, what does that mean? It actually means a metropolitan area network. I'll repeat that. Metropolitan area network, right? Some of you are getting an idea already, right? What is a metropolitan? A metropolitan is a city, is a town, is a county. A metropolitan area is, to sum it up, a city. Now let me give you a background on how this came about to be and why we call it a metropolitan area network. In actual fact, when we started this class of network, it was actually called a campus network. Yes, campus as in a university network. So when we started getting, networking devices, getting internet back in the 80s and 90s, were the unique type of network which was larger than a LAN, but it didn't really fit into what we call a LAN today. And these were networks at university campuses. So, as you know, a university campus typically spans beyond one campus into different types and locations of campuses, right? So that type of a network was called a campus area network. But we took that concept and applied it into the corporate, governmental, and non-governmental architecture of networks, and we called it a metropolitan area network. To simplify it for you at this level, a metropolitan area network is a summary of all the networks in one city. So for example, in LA, the networks there put together, that's a metropolitan area network. In New York, in Vegas, in New Delhi, in Melbourne, in Johannesburg, whichever part of the world you are in, the city you reside in, its network is summed up as a metropolitan area network. I hope we're together and that's clear, right? The fourth type of network, which you may or may not work with, is called a wide area network, or a WAN. Right? A wide area network, now I'm going to explain it in detail. Right? A wide area network is a network that belongs to one organization, but that's spread across wide geographical locations beyond one city. Okay? Right, so a wide area network, and I'll give you, there's a lot of examples that will make you understand this, because you probably will experience them at some point. A wide area network is a network of one organization across the continent, across even continents. So let's take an example of Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola owns their network. Coca-Cola has locations beyond North America, into Europe, into Africa, into Australia, etc., etc. Right? So all the continents, they have their network. That one network of one organization across geographical locations is called a wide area network. Think of AT&T's network. Think of Pepsi's network. Think of all large organizations' networks. That's a wide area network. Right. So in summary, the type of networks is a personal area network, which is around a person, a LAN, which is within your building, a MAN, which is across the city, and a WAN, which is continental. So those are the different classes of networks. And by the way, what you don't see on the diagram is when we put all that together and interconnect PANs, LANs, MANs, and WANs, it makes up what we have today and what we call the Internet. So the Internet is the collection, an amalgamation, a combination of all those networks globally put together. Right. Now, let's move on. Let's talk about how Cisco contributes to building these networks that we've spoken about. Right. So we have Cisco network devices, right? And I'm going to generally speak about 2 or 3 of them. Right. We have what we call Cisco routers. Right. A Cisco router provides what we call path determination. Now think of a traffic light. You go to a traffic light and the traffic light is dead. What happens? You get people who assist with directions, that this car stops, you go ahead and they give directions. Control, path determination. That's exactly what a Cisco device does. When a packet, a piece of data from within your network or outside your network arrives at a Cisco device, it is pointed and directed to the direction it should take. So that's a Cisco router. It basically does routing. If you want to be technical, path determination, path control, path direction. Okay? That's a Cisco device. That's a Cisco router. Right. The second type of device I'm going to talk about is what we call a Cisco switch. What does a Cisco switch do? Well, it switches. Right. A Cisco switch takes packets within a LAN and switches them. Right. So it takes, for example, computers that are connected within your corporate office at your workplace, sending those packets or data between computers within a LAN. Now, I'm emphasizing and highlighting that it's within a LAN. So the domain of where we use a Cisco switch is within a LAN, local area network. The domain in our architecture where we use a Cisco router is between networks. So when your network connects to the internet or connects to another secure network or connects to another branch office or connects to your partners, your vendors, etc. So a simple example is your Wi-Fi router at home. It provides connection within your network at home and then also acts as a connection point to your internet service provider which provides internet. So that's a router. Separates two networks, home and your ISP, and enables communication and a link between the two. Okay? Right, so that's a Cisco router explained. That's a Cisco switch explained. Right. I'm tempted to just highlight what you probably see when you get into corporate, or for those of you who are in corporate already, is what we call a layer 3 switch. Now, it will typically be this diagram here or this router here, right? A layer 3 switch is actually a combination of a router and a switch put together, right? In IT circles, there's a nickname for that. So we call a router, right? A switch. In IT circles, for Cisco engineers, they call it a swouter. Combination of the word switch and router, a swouter, right? But officially, it's called a layer 3 switch. When we say layer 3 switch, for us to explain that, you need to come for our CCNA class. We'll clarify that for you. But in summary, it's a switch that is a brain of a switch and a router at the same time in one physical box. So which means one device will be able to do routing and switching at the same time. That's a layer 3 switch. Okay, so those are key Cisco devices that enable and provide us with networking. Within Cisco, obviously, we do things like security. We have a firewall for Cisco, an ASA firewall. We actually do things like IPS devices, intrusion prevention systems. We have devices for that and so forth. But the key devices at our level that we need to master and understand is a Cisco router and switch. Okay, right. So now what we want to do, we want to dive in and actually go into basic configuration. Right. So I'm going to start a demo and we're going to do a configuration of a Cisco device. Right. Right. I hope you can all see my screen. I'm going to log in into a Cisco device and we're going to do basic configuration. Now, for those of you who may be new to Cisco, there's good news. Cisco has one language spoken across all the devices. Generally speaking, it's one language. So which means if you want to concentrate and focus on managing routers, it's one language that you have to learn. You can also, once you learn how to configure a Cisco router, you can also manage a switch, you can also manage a firewall, an IPS, etc., etc. So it's one skill for all the Cisco devices. So unlike other vendors where you have to specifically learn how each functions, in Cisco we have what we call the IOS, Internet Working Operating System. Right. Don't confuse it with the iOS for Apple. It's the same acronym except only Apple uses an I in small caps and OS. We use a capital I and a capital O and a capital S. Internet Working Operating System. This is the operating system of Cisco. Just like any other technology has an operating system. So for example, Microsoft, there's Windows. Apple, there's iOS. Within Cisco, we use what we call iOS. Internet Working Operating System is one language across all the devices. So how do you connect to a Cisco device? So you can see on the screen here, right? I'm connected to a Cisco router, right? How do you connect to it? There are many ways you can connect to it. The two key ways is taking a cable from your computer, connecting it into the console port of a Cisco device. That's one way. Or once you configure it, you can connect to it remotely via what we call a telnet or SSH session. This is basically connecting to it via the network. Right. So let's dive in. Right. So we're connected to a Cisco device here. Right. So the first step, it says, okay, right, we're going to be configuring this Cisco device, right? So it says press return to get started. So for those who have been in technology long, you understand that return basically means enter. It's an old Unix term, right? So it says press return to get started basically means press start to get started, right? Press enter. Right. So the first thing that you see there, you see a brand new router, and it's called, well, router, and you see a caret there, right? Or in math, you used to call it a greater than sign, right? Basically, this means you have guest access to the device, right? Think of your Windows. Windows, you can create a user, you can have an administrator, and you can have a guest user. Remember that? That's exactly where you see a greater than sign. Right. So for you, right. So the instruction here says enter the command to enter the privilege exec mode. Right. Now you want to transition from being a guest user to an administrator. Right. In Cisco, you enter the command enable. Right. Enable basically means switch me from a guest user to an administrator, or switch me from a normal user to an administrator. Now I want you to notice that something is going to change once I press enter. If I say enter, do you notice what happened? It says router hashtag or pound sign. Whenever you see where there is a pound sign, it means your mode has changed. Okay, you are now an administrator. So which means whatever you do henceforth is consequential. Okay, right. So it says router here. So within the admin mode, you have what we call the super admin mode within Cisco, where if you make any change, it will apply across the device globally. Right. We call it the global mode, right? So we pressed enable, we entered enable to get into the exec mode, if you want to be technical. Now from the exec mode, you're a general administrator, but if you want to be a super user, now using Unix language there, if you want to be a super user, you enter the command configuration terminal. So I'm going to say config terminal, right? When I press enter, I want you to notice again that it would have changed, right? So can you see it says router in parenthesis config pound sign or hashtag, right? What this means is I'm at the highest possible level of managing a Cisco device. Now, if you break things here, you will get fired. If you mess around here, this could be your last day in the office, right? So you want to be very careful what you do from here, because henceforth any change you make is global to the switch, the router, or the file, or any device, any Cisco device that you are managing, right? So the first thing that you want to do is give the router a name, right? Just like you give a name to your phone, you give a name to your computer, you give a name to a child, right? You also need to give a name to your Cisco device. In this case, we are dealing with a router, right? So it says give it a name. The command to give a device a name is host name, right? So you say host name, space, and then whatever name you give it. In this case, I'm going to call it GAD, right? I want you to notice what will happen immediately once I enter this command. Enter. Can you see what happened there? We transitioned from being called a router, now it's called a GAD, GAD router, right? We are still, remember, in config mode, the highest possible level where you can configure a Cisco device, but we've changed the name. It's as simple as that. Cisco devices are command line based, but believe me, they are not difficult to manage. I want you to come for the training. You actually see even the syntax. There's shortcuts of remembering the commands. There's auto-completion of the commands, etc., etc. We won't have time to dive into that right now. But that's how you give a host name. It's as simple as saying host name and the host name. Right. And by the end of this presentation, you actually gain skills to do basic admin of a Cisco device. So you can actually go and edit your resume or go and support your client. Those are the Cisco skills that we pride ourselves at Netcom of transferring to you so that you get real hands-on skills. Right. So the next instruction that we are asked to do here is to set a password. Now, obviously, you know that anything from your phone, your tablet, your phablet, your computer, anything needs to have security. It needs to have what we call a password in our case, in our context. So we're going to create a password. The way you do the command is, the command for a Cisco device to have a password is the following. It's enable secret. Right? Then you type whatever the password is. Right? In this case, they want us to change to create a password called class, because we're in class, so that we will easily remember that. Right? Enable secret. Right? I'm going to explain this before okay, let me type class. Right? So before I press enter here, what I'm instructing the device is that, you know what? You remember, guys, when we enter the enable password, when we enter the enable command here, we transitioned from guest to admin. But wait a minute, there was no password required. That's a red flag already, right? We do not want people to just have admin access to our Cisco devices for every Tom, Dick, and Mary, right? So we want to specifically have a password so that you can transition from a guest to an admin. So this is the password that we are setting, right? So that's the keyword enable. The word secret here means that the password that we are going to set should be stored in encrypted format within your configuration in a Cisco device. So a Cisco device, you can actually do a show running configuration. It basically shows you all the configuration that has been done on a Cisco device. If I just say enable and put the word password and say class, it means if someone views the properties as you do on Windows, if you view the properties of the Cisco device, they will actually see that password that we set in clear text. Uh-oh, that's trouble, right? You don't want people to be able to view your password in clear text. So that's why we're using the enable secret, right? The enable password command is still there, by the way. Since been deprecated, but it's still there for backward compatibility of older Cisco devices. Right. So we're going to say enable secret, and the password is going to be class, and enter. That's it. The next time we actually try to access the device, we'll actually be prompted for a password called class. Are we together? Now, the password that we have set is for transitioning from enable into exec mode, or what we call the admin. Right? I'm not going to be specific about the technical terms that we'll do when you come in class, but it's basically transition from guest to admin. Right? But think about it. How do I actually access a Cisco device before I can actually go from enable to global config terminal and so forth? We say there are two ways. One is either via a console cable that you directly connect from your computer to your Cisco device, or you can do via what we call telnet or SSH. So what we need to do is, well, we need to put a password on that console access so that Gilbert, who is just visiting, cannot just come and connect his computer to our Cisco devices on the console port and gain access. So we need to put that a password there as well. Now, I'm trying to be very slow but sure, because I don't want to confuse the enable password, the enable secret password, and the console password. Console is for physical access. We're going to configure what we call a VTY, is for remote access. But once you gain access in either of those two ways, you need to enable so that you transition from a guest to an admin. That is what we've done already. We've put the enable password. So let's dive in and go to the console. So we say line console 0, right? Every Cisco device, and I want you to go and look on this, every Cisco device has a port written CON for console, right? And it's always in blue, the color blue, right? This, you cannot connect any other device except a device like a computer to gain physical access into the router or the switch or the device. Right? So when you say line console 0, we are specifically configuring that port. If I say enter, right, you see my configuration has changed to config line, which means whatever I'm going to be configuring is specific to that line console. Right? So it says enter the command string to set the console password. So I'm going to say password Cisco. Enter. So anyone who physically inserts their cable into my router, be warned, you better have the password. And the password in this case is Cisco. Right? But we're not done yet. We need to enable logins on that port. By default, we don't allow people to log in. So we're going to put the command log in. It basically means I allow people to log in via the console 0 port. Are we together? So now what we want to do is to configure now. Typically, as a systems administrator, as a network engineer, you're not going to be sitting in front of your Cisco device every day. No. You're actually going to be working from your desk and remotely connect via telnet or SSH into the device and configuring it from the comfort of your desk or home. Okay? So what we need to do, we need to put a password for remote access as well. So I'm going to say line VTY, right? Enter. Right. Line VTY. VTY basically means it's an old Unix term to mean remote access, to simplify it. Right. So now I'm configuring remote access. I need to do the same thing, put a password, Cisco, right? And I need to enable login. There you go. Right. By the way, if you just put a password and don't put the login, people can have the password but won't be able to log in. You need to manually enable logins. Okay. Right. So now we need to exit. And then now we need to configure IP addresses on the interfaces. Right. So each Cisco device has interfaces. Just like your device for your Wi-Fi at home, you have those ports. Just like in the office, you have your device router, which has those ports. Those ports, you can go within the system and assign them IP addresses. Right, what is an IP address? An IP address is an identity. Just like you get an identity number as soon as you are born or you turn 18, you get a social security number. That's the same thing with computers. As soon as a computer joins the network, it gets an IP address. That's an IP address. Now we're taking that IP address and assigning it to an interface. That's one of the objectives on our agenda. How do you assign an IP address to an interface? Right. So you go to the interface and put a command. You say, I want to go to an interface, and the name of the interface, in our case, it's serial 0. If I say enter, I want to notice the change. We are now in config IF. IF means interface. So whatever I'm going to do here applies only to that interface. Okay? Right. So I'm going to put the IP address. So I'm saying IP address for this interface will be 172.17.0.1 with a subnet mask of 255.255.0.0. Okay? If I say enter, I've actually put an IP address on the interface. Okay? Right. So I'm going to set also the clock rates. Right. This I'm not going to explain in detail, but this determines the bandwidth. Right. This is assuming that this router is sitting at the ISP connecting to your house or to your corporate. How do they set the bandwidth that you're going to get? Remember, you pay to get a certain amount of bandwidth, right? They configure it on the interface that connects from the ISP to your home, ISP to your office, and this is what they set the clock rate. It's basically bandwidth, right? Right. And the last thing that you have to do on all Cisco routers is turn on the interface. By default, all interfaces on a Cisco router are off, right? So what you need to do is to put what we call a no shut. No shutdown basically means you are now opening up that interface to start communication. Okay? Right. So this is basically configuring a Cisco router, a Cisco device. Right. I'll switch over back to Mesut for Q&A and any other questions. Right. Thank you.
Hello. That was very informative, Gilbert. All right, let me
Thank you.
make myself the presenter so I can share the other information here.
Okay.
With all of you.
Right.
There we go. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly talk about some of the related courses to today's topic, as well as the promotions. Before we get to the Q&A section, so we have a special promotion running for this recommended courses below, and you will get 15% discount on the list price. The first course is the ICND, Interconnecting Cisco Network Devices, ICND 1, which is scheduled for March 20th. Then we also have ICND 2 for March 27th, which is the following week. Introducing Cisco Data Center Networking version 6 is on March 27th. IINS, which is the security course implementing Cisco Network Security on March 13th. And we have implementing Cisco Edge Network Security Solution, which is on February 27th. And we do offer the Network Plus course, which is the prerequisite for some of these courses. So if you are not ready for the Cisco courses, you can take the CompTIA Network Plus before you jump into this. And the promo code for this 15% discount is WCNB0214, and this offer is valid till March 1st, 2017. So please go ahead and take advantage of this discount that we have. Now, the next thing is that we're going to launch a quick poll for you to see how many of you might be interested in getting some Cisco training or get more information about training from Netcom. In addition, we have more webinars coming up. Please go to netcomlearning.com/webinar to register, and also follow our social media pages to get latest technology updates. Please refer to the GoToWebinar chat window for the links. Now let's get to some of these questions that we have here. I will just simply pull them up and read it out to you, Gilbert.
Okay.
So someone said that, okay, I think it was answered by one of our other moderator. Can I see the, oh, okay, so that was from the the demo that you did. Someone said, can I see the last page of the final configuration of the Cisco router? So of course we can connect you back with the presenter. If you have any additional questions, we can get them answered. We have a question which says, what is an IP address? So okay. Gilbert, if you want to
yes.
answer that.
Very good question. Right. I hope you can all hear me. Right.
Yes, we can.
Right. So whenever a child is born, now I'm going to go to human examples. Whenever a child is born, as soon as they are born, they give them a name. Thy name shall be John, for example. Right. So the kid is born, they get a name. The equivalent happens whenever you connect any device to a network, whether your Wi-Fi at home or you connect your laptop as soon as you get into the office, it gets what we call an identity number, equivalent to a social security number. Right. So an IP address, put simply, is an ID that the network can identify your device with. Right. And I don't know if you want me to get more technical into the two classes of IP addresses, but I'll be brief. We have two types of IP addresses, a private IP address and a public IP address. A private IP address is only used within your local area network. That's your office, your home, university campus, right? Whenever you want to go to the internet, right at your router or your ISP, they switch you and give you what we call a public IP address. A public IP address is one that can only work on the internet. A good example to that is your ID. You can use your identity locally within the country. So if you're in the US, for example, I can use my license and go to I can fly anywhere within the US with my ID or license. If I intend to go beyond our borders, I have to use a passport. That's the equivalent of a public IP address. So a private IP address is an identity that you can use locally. A public IP address is an identity that you need to use when you go beyond your network. So in summary, an IP address is an identity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a question. It says, as a technician or network engineer, is memorizing command lines something that you should practice, or does it come with development over your career?
Thank you so much for that question, because that's a question I get very often. Right. The short answer is no. Many people get so scared that, man, I have to memorize all these tens and tens of commands. No, you don't. We didn't have time for me to show you the context-sensitive help, as we call it in Cisco. You don't need to, believe me, you don't need to memorize any command, not even one. Yeah, I know some of you don't believe me. But you just need to know what you are doing. So for example, if you know you want to change your host name, which we did already, you need to know, okay, changing your host name, so it starts with an H. If you put an H and a question mark, it shows you all the possible commands that start with H, right? So you can see there's host name, there's host record, there's this. Oh, okay, I really want host name, then you type host name, right? The second thing that you get as well, I'll be brief, is when you type HO and press tab, it auto-completes the command for you. So that's, I know it's a long explanation to, you do not need to memorize any command.
Got it. Thank you. So the next question we have is, what is the difference between an IP address and MAC address?
Okay, good question. Right. An IP address is an identity that you get within your local area network. It could be your home or your office. Okay? Right. This you get as soon as you connect to the internet, and you connect to the network, and you lose it as soon as you disconnect from the network. Okay? Whereas a MAC address is a bent-in physical number that's on your network card. So it comes straight from the manufacturer. So if you buy a tablet, right? You buy a tablet from Apple. You buy a computer from HP. They all come inbuilt with a MAC address. A MAC address, in short, does not change, comes inbuilt. It's physically bent on the card. So it cannot change. It comes with the device, and it's unique to that device, whereas an IP address is allocated and taken when you disconnect from the internet or from the network.
Great. So the next question is related to the training. So someone says, I have my Network Plus cert already. What would be the Cisco course I would start with?
Good. Right. So as the moderator has explained, the path that he has set is the globally accepted path, right? After you do, for example, the question, the case in point is Network Plus. The next obvious thing to do now is your CCNA, right? You can either do it in two parts, as it's been explained by the moderator, through ICND1 and ICND2. So for that candidate who has done Network Plus, the next obvious choice would be ICND1 and then ICND2, or take it as a composite of the whole Cisco CCNA.
Thank you, and I have that slide back on the screen for you to see. So this is the course that Gilbert is referring to, the ICND 1 and 2. You could take them individually as a 5-day course, and we also offer this as a combined course for CCN, and you can attend that one as well. Another question, what is the difference between static and dynamic routing?
Right. The difference between static and dynamic routing is, right, static routing is a routing statement that you go and manually enter into a router. By the way, what is a route? A route is direction, basically, right? If you want to go to Vegas, take this highway, it will take you there. That's what you go and enter into a Cisco router. You say IP route to this destination, go via this interface or IP. So that's a static route. A static route, you manually enter it. Keyword, manually enter it. Okay? Dynamic routing, on the other hand, is you enable a routing protocol and it does all the routing automatically for you. So obviously in big organizations where you have multiple paths to multiple destinations, they use dynamic routing. Static routing is specifically when you want to specifically point traffic to a specific path to a specific destination. So that will be the the difference is. Static, you manually enter it to influence path. Dynamic, it's automated by a routing protocol.
Okay, great. I think the last question here we have is, what is the difference between a router and a switch?
Okay, right. We mentioned this already, right? We said a router separates networks. Okay, very important that you underline that. It separates networks. So you get to a router, a packet gets to a router, it is then sent to another network. Maybe the person wants to go to google.com, it's sent to the ISP through their internal router, sent to San Jose, boom, it reaches Google, right? It's all done by routers outside of your network. Very important, right? So it's path determination, path control outside of your network, right? Whereas a switch, it switches packets within your network. So a switch is an internal device that enables communication within your network. A router enables communication outside your network. So that's the key difference between the two.
Okay, so the next question, I think it is a technical question, and you might be more familiar with the term. In what solution or solutions would it be more beneficiary to use a sorter instead of separate router and switch?
Okay.
Is that the right term I used?
Yes,
Sorter?
right.
Okay.
Right, sorter. So that's a very good question. In fact, you will be surprised that most organizations that you're going to go into, mostly starting in 2013 going forward, they no longer purchase a router and a switch separately. They purchase what we call a layer 3 switch, which we are calling a swouter. That's its nickname, right? So it would be something that you have in small organizations, medium organizations, and even large organizations. That's the trend now, to buy a device that has multiple capabilities. So let me give you a very simple example of a swouter or a layer 3. Right, think of a Wi-Fi device at home, right? You have one device which acts as a router, connects to your ISP, but you have about 4 ports there if you notice, or 5 ports or 6 ports depending on the size, which act as a switch where you can manually connect a computer. That's a swouter. That's a layer 3 switch. It is a combination of a switch and a router within it. So you will actually see more of a layer 3 switch, or what we call a swouter, than separate devices. That's the trend now in the modern technology. So it is in such architectures that you will see it.
All right, great. So that's the last question we have so far.
Okay.
Then we just have one more just came in.
All right.
Okay, great. When accessing port on router, do you use command prompt / PowerShell, or is there Cisco software that need to be installed on the device accessing the Cisco device?
Very good question. Now, I hear the word PowerShell. This person should be a Windows guy, okay? In Cisco, we hate Windows. I'm kidding. Right. So PowerShell is specifically managing your servers, whether it's a core server or it's a non-core server, right? That's the MCSE, come from for the MCSE class. So PowerShell does not communicate with Cisco routers, first thing. The second thing is every Windows machine comes with a default terminal client. Now, this is not something that people generally use, but if you go to your accessories on a Windows machine, XP, Windows 7, etc., you see a tool called terminal. If you click that, right, it will prompt up on your window and it will ask you the IP address of a terminal you intend to connect to. In this case, if you put the IP address of a Cisco device, connect your cable, boom, you get connected, either via console or command line. So that's an inbuilt tool that comes with Windows. But as you see with experience, you're going to need to purchase or get third-party tools like Putty, for example. Putty. It's a free one that many engineers use to connect to their Cisco devices. And there's CRT as well, and many other commercial and non-commercial ones. So you will need a tool, a software tool to connect, and Windows comes by default with one.
Okay, so I guess that is the last one so far on the question pen, and there goes another one, which is good.
Okay.
I get confused with the time zone and miss. Okay, so again, there's a. So if you missed the webinar, this session was recorded. You will be getting a copy of the recording within the next 24 hours via email. So once again, if you missed it, no worries. We'll be sending you a copy of the recording by email. So if there are no other questions, I just want to thank all of you for joining here us today. If you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at this time or at any time. After you go back to work and you think of any question, just send it out to us at webinar@netcomlearning.com. We hope you have found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here soon. Feel free to tell your friends, colleagues about our webinar and others. And as you know, all the webinars we do, the recorded copy is available on our website on the webinar page, so you can go and see what are the future webinars we have coming up, what are the past webinars that we did. You can see the recordings, you can register for future webinars. And if you need any information about this course's training, feel free to reach out to us via our phone number, website, or email, and our learning consultants will be more than happy to give you any information that you may need for the training or consulting that we offer. With that, I would like to end today's webinar, and I want to thank Gilbert for a wonderful presentation. I want to thank all the attendees for taking your time and attending it today, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you soon. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.